Serena was the villainess of an otome game, a non-blood-related older sister who tormented the heroine and her mother. After being exiled for her many misdeeds, she met a truly miserable end. Or so the story went. One day at the age of 7, Serena suddenly remembered everything. Serena did not want to be exiled and refused to accept a miserable fate. When her mother asked what was wrong, Serena told her it was nothing and that she was quite alright. Serena reassured herself that she was still safe since she was on good terms with both Ange and her mother. If she just worked hard and eliminated any possibility of being exiled, everything would be fine. Serena woke up to a scream and a crash from inside the mansion. She noted that it was her mother causing trouble again. Serena remarked that it was beautiful weather. The world she lived in now bore no resemblance to the modern Japan of her previous life. It was closer to medieval Europe. It was a mysterious land where monsters roamed and magic was real. Citizens lived on islands floating in the sky, and beneath them a vast sea stretched out. Serena gazed at the sea stretching out below, shimmering brilliantly. It was a forbidden place that no one was even permitted to touch. She wondered what kind of world lay beneath those waves. Within her she held memories of a world of blue water that she loved with all her heart. She wanted to swim in the sea. In her previous life, Serena had absolutely loved the sea. She had worked as a scuba diving instructor and spent her days off doing underwater conservation work. The sea was her entire world. Serena was quite fond of her hair, which was the color of the sea. Her memories of the sea were more vivid than those of her parents or friends. That was how much she had adored it. She was Serena, eldest daughter of the Flotos dukedom, a ducal family. She was 6 months away from marrying the country's prince. She greeted her family as she entered the room. Serena lived with her biological father and his second wife, whom she called Mother, and her stepsister Ange, who was Mother's child from her first marriage. Her father mentioned he would need Serena's help cleaning up again. Ange greeted her. Mother cried out in relief that Serena had finally arrived. Serena noted that Mother had broken the dishes again. The protection magic Serena had cast on them must have worn off, though at least the spell to keep the pot from spilling was still holding. Serena used her magic to restore the broken dishes while her family watched in amazement. Ange said she wished she could use magic as well as Serena. Serena offered to watch Ange if she wanted to practice. Ange was thrilled. Serena then pointed out Ange's bedhead, and Ange panicked and ran off to check the mirror. Serena reflected that although they were not related by blood, they were a close, peaceful family. There was no shadow of that unhappy ending anymore. Serena truly loved her family and had stripped away every single factor that could get her banished. In this world it was normal even for nobles to take care of themselves, but once Serena left to get married, it would be difficult for Mother to handle all the housework alone. Serena suggested buying one of those tools that does the washing automatically, basically a magic appliance. Mother loved the idea. Her father admitted they were relying completely on Serena's magic to clean up. Mother said she would like to keep trying just a little longer and that she had even been breaking fewer dishes lately. Serena thought about whether that was really the case. As the family sat together at the dining table, Serena quietly worried they would run out of dishes at this rate. Ever since the day it was decided she would become queen, Serena had worked hard. She mastered manners and dance, refined her education, and acquired foreign languages and diplomatic knowledge. She also continued her training in magic related to national defense and medicine. At last she would be able to see Sensei Ford now that he was back from the sea. Her magic teacher was the one who held the special title of Magician of the Azure Sea. Serena rushed to greet him, telling him she had been waiting for his return. His name was Ford Lucille. Serena told him she looked forward to his guidance. Ford told her they would begin at once. Serena was learning healing magic by practicing on a doll. She said it was no use, the power would not reach the end of the arm, and just making her hand glow took everything she had. Ford told her that if she could just grasp the knack, he was certain she could do it, and offered to show her an example. Ford demonstrated healing magic on the doll, casting a massive magic circle with ease. Serena was amazed. Healing magic was a complex and advanced discipline that combined magical theory, medicine, and magic power. Even a specialist magic physician could not heal an entire body all at once. Yet Ford did it with one hand effortlessly. Serena thought that he truly was the magician of the Azure Sea. Their lessons had begun 3 years ago, when their father announced he had arranged for a magic tutor to visit them. Their father had been excited, saying it was the magician of the Azure Sea himself, and that since Serena was marrying into the royal family, they had made a special exception. Ange asked what an Azure Sea mage was. Their father explained they were mages born with exceptional magic power, that there were only a handful in the whole world, and that unlike ordinary citizens they could even dive into the sea. Ange was shocked to hear they could go into the sea. Serena covered her mouth in surprise. Their father told them to make sure they learned properly. Serena said she was not scared. At their first meeting 3 years earlier, Serena had thanked Ford for teaching them and promised to do her very best. Ange enthusiastically said she would do her best too. Ford said he looked forward to working with them. As the first lesson began with basic magical theory, Ange whispered that Ford was handsome, and Sirena noted that he did not seem like the friendly type. During the lesson, Ange told Ford she did not understand, and he stared at her intensely. Ange and Sirena were both tense. Their mother came in to suggest a short break and some tea, but she slipped and dropped the entire tea set. Ange, their father, and the servants all found Ford too scary. Ange could not focus on her studies, and their mother could not even bring Ford tea anymore. They suggested turning him down since he was famous for being difficult. Serena insisted they keep things exactly as they were. Ford was the first person in this world she had met who could go to the sea. Ever since she remembered her previous life, she had been longing for the sea, and their time alone during breaks was the perfect chance to ask him about it. Serena asked Ford if she could ask him about the sea, and how exactly one enters it. Ford was silent for a moment. Serena worried that perhaps she had been rude. Then Ford began to speak. Ford explained that he was granted a small island by the crown and he submerged into the sea along with the entire island. He then harvested resources from the seabed and delivered them to the kingdom. Ford said that since most resources were harvested from the sea, the kingdom granted Azure Sea Mages high status and authority. Serena was just happy that Ford had spoken to her about the sea at all. She asked what kind of creatures lived in the sea. Ford said that was all for today. Serena thought she had been too greedy, but then Ford handed her a book saying that since she was so curious to know, Serena opened the book and saw a dolphin. She was thrilled and thanked him. She realized this world also had the same sea creatures as her previous life, including sea turtles. She said she would love to see them. Ford told her she was the only one. Ford said she was the only person to treat him without showing even a single hint of displeasure. Serena noticed that Ford was smiling. She was caught off guard by her own feelings and decided to savor that moment all to herself. Ford announced they would move on to practical magic and asked if she had her magic stone with her. Ford showed Serena his magic stone, which was red. Serena noted it was just something he happened to have lying around. She recalled that magicians of the Azure Sea were often given blue stones by their families or the royal family as a prayer for their safe return from the sea. She thought a deep blue magic stone would suit Ford much better. Serena admired Ford's eyes and hair, which were blue-black like the deep sea. She wondered if he would accept a blue stone from her. Ford instructed her to set her magic stone into a pedestal, then told her he would be diving again starting tomorrow and would return in a few months. Serena tried to speak up. Serena presented Ford with a gift box. Inside was a magic stone. She asked him to please return safely and said she looked forward to the day he would teach her again. Ford looked at the magic stone and then at Serena. He accepted the gift. Ford thanked her. Serena reflected that he had taught her not just magic but also about the sea, and about faint, tender feelings. Even now, the brooch she had given him was still on Ford's chest. She still treasured the magic stone from the sea that Ford had given her in return. Serena resolved to make sure her sensei's teachings did not go to waste and to give it her absolute best. Ford confirmed that at her current level there should be no problem. Ford told Serena her knowledge seemed quite sufficient as well. She said she was prepared to protect the citizens and could now marry into the royal family with peace of mind. Ford noted that by the next year she would be royalty herself. Serena said she would miss their lessons and that she had so little time left to learn from him. Serena, in her head, thanked Ford for everything, for teaching her knowledge, magic, and the sea, and for teaching her what first love felt like. Serena reflected that her engagement to the prince was a bond of friendship and duty, not love. She doubted she would ever feel that way again for the rest of her life. Serena and her family then visited the pottery workshop to replace the dishes Mother had broken. Serena asked to put a protection spell on the new dishes before they were wrapped up. The pottery man agreed. Ange wished their father could have come too, but he was swamped with work. They still needed to solve the issue of connecting with the Sandal family and the Claudia family. Just then someone cried out for help. A man came running and nearly collided with Ange. Ange immediately chased after the thugs and yelled at them to stop. Ange crashed into the thugs and broke a wall in the process. Their mother, startled, sent fruit tumbling down the slope. Serena sighed that both of them were klutzes. She then noticed something. Serena reported the thugs to an officer nearby. The wall that was damaged belonged to the Sandal family, and the workers noted it would be a real pain to fix. Serena and the others decided they would have to apologize and pay for the damage. A man from the Sandal family then appeared and shouted at the thugs. The officer thanked them for their report, saying those ruffians had been terrorizing the area and that even Lord Sandor had had his hands full with them. He told Ange that Lord Sandor would actually be quite grateful to her. A girl then introduced herself as Lily of the House of Claudia and thanked them for coming to their aid, saying she would truly love to become better acquainted. Serena observed that Ange could dive headfirst into trouble and it would still turn out fine. Their mother was clumsy but actually quite sharp and resourceful. Serena thought she was just no match for them. Just then someone greeted her. It was Prince Latil, the prince of the kingdom and Serena's fiancé. He said he had been just about to head over to the Duke's residence. Ange excitedly began telling him about what had happened. They all returned to the residence together. When they arrived home, the servants greeted them. Their father immediately called for Ange, saying they had received a message from the Claudia family. It was from Lily. Ange was excited. Mother panicked over the brand new dishes and the servant reminded her they had a protection spell on them. Serena explained they had been invited to tea at the Claudia household. Serena apologized to Latil for all the chaos. He said he did not mind and that it was as lively as ever. He mentioned that Ange had told him about the commotion on the way back and that she had even become friends with the girl involved. Serena explained the girl was the young lady of the Claudia family and the wall Ange broke belonged to the Sandal family. Latil was surprised, noting that both were prominent families their father had been wanting to connect with for his work. Latil laughed and said it was so like Ange, and that all was well that ended well. Serena was glad that Latil was so understanding. She reflected that they had never fallen in love with each other, but they were bound by a solid trust and friendship. She was sure they would make a good king and queen. Latil said it felt like it had been a long time since they had a chance to talk alone. He started to say something but then stopped and said it was nothing. Serena noticed Latil was clearly troubled, but she decided she could ask again when he was ready to talk. That night she was the last one awake in the house. Serena had piles of work and study to get through: wedding preparations, learning royal duties, handling part of the ducal estate's affairs, preventing and cleaning up after mother's blunders, and dealing with the fallout of Ange's latest trouble. No matter how much she did, it never ended. She was so exhausted she could not even drift off to sleep. Serena told herself she had better get to sleep soon. She did not mind the effort, and the work was rewarding. She was sure these busy, bustling, peaceful days would go on forever, since mother's commotion would likely wake her up again tomorrow. She wanted to become a queen recognized and loved by the citizens. Serena fell asleep believing those days would last forever and always. That was what she believed without a shadow of a doubt. And yet, to think Prince Latil would cast her aside and get engaged to her younger sister Ange, on the day Serena was summoned to the castle in a chamber where her parents and the royal family had gathered, from the very lips of the two citizens she trusted most, she received a proposal that was hard to believe. Serena asked if the engagement between Prince Latil and herself was to be dissolved. Latil began to apologize, saying he had no excuse for trying to overturn a state marriage at the very last moment. Serena wondered if no one would stop this. Serena noted that the matter had already been settled. She stated that she was the one who must provide an answer, whether she accepted calling off her engagement to Latil and whether she accepted Latil's engagement to Ange. Ange apologized to Serena, saying she had tried to give up so she would not betray her, but she just could not help how she felt. Latil said he could not bear the guilt of marrying her while harboring feelings for Ange and that he was truly deeply sorry. Serena could see that the two of them really did love each other, unlike her who had felt nothing but friendship and a sense of duty. Serena explained that the engagement was an arrangement between the royal family and the dukedom, and it mattered little to them which of the two sisters became the crown princess. She said that Ange, who shared a mutual love with Latil, was the one truly suited for the role. The problem was that the engagement had already been announced to the world, both at home and abroad. Serena stated she had no desire to betray the trust of their citizens. Serena asked Latil and Ange to do everything in their power so that everyone, the citizens and their allies, would understand that Ange, not Serena, was the one truly suited to be crown princess, and would be able to celebrate their new engagement. She asked if they would do this for her. Latil and Ange both agreed, with Latil swearing to it. Serena said she had no reason to object, and that it was for the best that two citizens drawn to one another should be together. The king addressed Serena, offering his deepest gratitude for her compassionate decision and for all the years she had devoted herself to the country. The king told Serena the royal house would guarantee her future, and that if there was anything she wished to pursue, they would provide their support. He told her to take her ease and rest for now. The king then turned to Latil and Ange, telling them they had pushed through a matter that would normally be unforgivable. He said he would not permit them to rely on Serena regarding it, and ordered them to think very carefully about the reasons for their engagement. Serena's parents were glad it had all ended peacefully. Ange cried and thanked Serena, saying she was truly sorry. Her parents also apologized, saying that Latil and Ange had actually been talking to them about this for some time, and they had not known how to bring it up, ending up causing Serena pain by springing it on her so suddenly. Serena told them they did not need to be so reserved with her, since there had never been any romantic feelings between her and Latil to begin with. She told Ange not to apologize. Ange kept saying she was sorry. Serena told Ange that if she felt she had wronged her, then she should make the citizens that much happier. She asked Ange to fulfill her responsibilities as both a member of the dukedom and as the one marrying into the royal family, so that Serena would never regret the decision she had made that day, and so that she could truly feel it was right for Ange to become the crown princess. Serena wondered when the relationship between Latil and Ange had started to change. She had a vague inkling of it but had continued to look the other way because there was nothing she could have done about it anyway. Those two had managed to change their situation quite brilliantly. She was no longer the crown princess. She believed that with how bright and proactive the two of them were, they would surely lead the citizens in a good direction. Serena realized that her work preparing for the role of queen would no longer be her duty. Those harsh, grueling yet fulfilling days she had spent preparing to become queen had all been for nothing now. Serena held the magic stone Ford had given her and thought of him. She wondered if even for someone like her, Ford would once again be willing to teach her magic. She wanted to see him right now and ask him, but by now he was at the bottom of the sea and it had been months since they last met. Serena recalled the king's words about supporting anything she wished to do. She lay in bed thinking about what she wanted to do. Right now all she wanted was to swim in that dark, warm sea. Serena did not have the luxury of wallowing. She had to hand over the engagement preparations to Ange, master the duties of the dukedom, and attend to a mountain of tasks. She would likely receive a new marriage proposal sooner or later. She could no longer hope for a favorable match, but it was far better than the game's bad ending. In the game, the Villainess was abandoned by her family and exiled from the country. That was the lonely end she had met. Compared to that, Serena now had the protection of the royal family, and her family was still on good terms with her. A servant called for her and Serena heard a crash. She said she would be right there. Serena noticed that Latil was visiting the estate again. The servants remarked that he was a real help and that he was so good at guiding their tomboy Ange. They said he was a cautious person and that they seemed like a good balance. Serena quietly said she could see that. Serena thought about how the mere presence of affection was not enough of a reason on its own. The citizens had to be made to feel that Ange was more beneficial to the country than she was. She noted they still had not decided on a justification for announcing the new engagement, and that it was quite difficult to find any merit that outshined how capable Serena herself was. Her father asked if she could spare the time, saying he had some ducal duties he wished to entrust to her. Serena agreed. Serena's father led her down into the basement of the estate. He showed her the room containing the teleportation magic circle. Serena recognized the place. The family had been using it whenever they went to the villa on the remote island. Her father told her he wanted her to learn how to operate it. Her father finished explaining how to operate the teleportation magic circle and asked if she understood. Serena confirmed she did. He gave her the key to the room and warned her to be absolutely certain of her destination, as it did not just affect her own safety but the safety of the entire world. Serena said she understood. The transition of the household duties was going smoothly, but they still had not settled on a reason for the change in engagement. While the reason for the engagement between Ange and Latil remained undecided, the day of the announcement drew closer with every passing moment. Signs of panic were beginning to show among Serena's family as well. Serena thought that she could not help them with this, all she could do was watch over them. Serena tripped over nothing while walking through the hallway. She wondered what she had tripped on, but there was nothing there. She noted that lately she kept tripping over nothing and bumping into things. She wondered if Mother and Ange's clumsiness had rubbed off on her, then dismissed the thought. One day Mother woke Serena up before dawn. Serena wondered if something had happened. Mother excitedly told Serena they were going to the villa. Serena was confused. Mother apologized and explained that they had finally decided on a reason the previous night. Serena was to withdraw from her engagement to Latil on the grounds of poor health. To make it more believable, she would pretend to live a life of recuperation on the remote island. Starting that day, Mother acknowledged it would be a hardship but assured Serena they would frame it so it would not hurt her future. She asked if that was too much to ask. Serena agreed, saying there was certainly no better reason than that. Mother thanked her. Serena told Mother to head over to the villa right away. Mother grabbed Serena's hand and began pulling her down the stairs. Serena told her to wait and at least let her get ready as she was still in her nightgown and empty-handed. Mother insisted every second counted. Mother explained that Father and Ange were having an audience with the king first thing that morning to report this. She wanted to make sure their stories were aligned. The family would join Serena at the villa that night. Mother told Serena the villa had everything she would need and to please try to relax. Mother operated the magic circle and it activated. Serena stood on the glowing circle in silence. Serena noted that Mother's drive was as relentless as ever. Still, she had been wanting a break herself, so this was quite perfect. She decided she would spend her time in the garden with a book looking out over the sea. As the teleportation activated, she noticed something was wrong. Serena arrived not at the villa but in a dense jungle. She looked around in shock. She realized the place she had been sent to was not the villa. She could not believe it. Serena recalled that the teleportation magic circle in the basement actually led to Monster Island. She was horrified. Monsters were creatures that once roamed freely across the world, abominable creatures that devoured humans. Serena recalled learning that they had been subdued and isolated on a single island long ago and that the Dockal House had been entrusted with managing that island for generations. Serena was frightened, remembering that Monster Island was the only place in this world that truly scared her. She asked herself whether the Dockal House had been managing it all this time. Her father had reassured her that the teleportation spell only went one way so the monsters could not come to them, and that whenever they went to the island it was with elite mage soldiers and full heavy gear. He had told her to just focus on learning how to operate it. Serena now wondered with dread whether the spell had sent her to Monster Island instead of the villa. Serena could not understand how it had ended up like this. She wondered if Mother had made a mistake with the teleportation spell. She found it hard to believe but could think of no other explanation. The magic circle's light had already faded and it would not activate again. She recalled her father saying it was strictly one way. She had also left behind the portable teleportation magic tool she always carried. Serena realized there was nothing she could do. Her family likely would not even notice she was gone until that night. The sun was already high. She worried that at this rate she might be there until nightfall. A massive monster with horns and spiraling eyes appeared before Serena. She realized it had found her and that it was going to kill her. She told herself she could not give up and had to run, pushing herself just a little bit farther. Serena found herself completely surrounded by monsters, their glowing eyes staring at her from every direction in the darkness of the forest. Serena collapsed. She could not run anymore and there was nowhere left to go. A monster attacked her, tearing at her. She thought about how she was going to die in a place like this in such a way. She thought that if she was going to die anyway, then at least she wished it could have been in the sea, deep within the sea. She wanted to die there. A massive magic spell activated and the island began to plunge into the sea. Ford appeared, calling out for Serena. Someone was calling out to Serena. Serena opened her eyes. Ford called out to Serena urgently. Serena, looking flustered, murmured "Professor" in response. Ford sat at Serena's bedside and asked if she was in any pain. Serena tried to process what was happening. She stammered about pain and asked if she was still alive. She asked where she was and mentioned the monsters, then noticed her legs and panicked. Ford called her name to get her attention. He told Serena to calm down. He assured her that she was alive and that all the monsters had been repelled. He explained that this was his home and since he had medical equipment there, it was the best place for her treatment. He told her that her legs were still there. He added that he was suppressing the pain with magic, but her wounds could reopen at any moment, so she had to stay absolutely still when he was not around to help. Serena, with tears forming in her eyes, telling Ford that she had been saved at the very last second. She said that if it had not been him who saved her, or if he had been even a little later, by now she would have been dead. She thanked him for saving her, saying she was truly grateful. The professor wiped a tear from Serena's face. She looked surprised. He said no, more than anything, he was glad that she was safe. Serena wondered if she was dreaming. She thought that Ford smiling at her so gently like that was too much for her. Her heart was pounding loudly. Serena found herself outside in a forest. She realized she was on Monster Island. She thought that Ford's smile must have been a dream after all, since a smile like that was impossible. She wondered if it had been a delusion born from her desire to escape. She then noticed something nearby. A monster appeared before Serena. Her body would not move and she could not escape. The monster attacked. Serena jolted awake, screaming. Ford was still at her side, telling her to stay calm and breathe in and out. He asked if she was all right. Serena, panting, asked which one was the dream. She worried about what she would do if this moment was the dream instead. He told Serena that she had been unconscious for a short while. He assured her that this was his home and there were no monsters here, and that she was safe now. Serena remembered that she had been saved. She told herself that she had really survived, and that she was really okay now. Serena clung to Ford's arm, relieved. He looked at her gently. The professor told Serena that he had strengthened the anesthesia magic and asked how her pain was. Serena replied that she was all right now. The professor then asked her to tell him a few things while they had the time. He asked why she went to Monster Isle. He asked if she had been driven to despair by her broken engagement. Serena denied it strongly, insisting that she truly wished them the best. The professor then asked why she would do something like courting death. Serena wondered how on earth she was supposed to explain it. She began to tell him the truth. The professor pieced it together because of her mother's careless mistake. Serena had moved to the villa under the pretense of medical treatment. Serena confirmed it. She then realized that she still had not seen her family. She thought that her family likely did not realize she was missing until they reached the villa. Serena imagined what her family must have gone through that night, finding her torn and blood-soaked clothes, her father going to Monster Isle, and her mother being faced with what she had done. Serena thought it was terrible. She asked the professor if he had told her family she was safe, saying that everyone would be so worried, especially her mother. Serena also worried about her work. The engagement preparations, the transfer of the duchy's duties, everything was still unfinished. She said she had to return quickly and set things right, muttering about finishing documents and coming up with a new reason for calling off the engagement. The professor called her name. He told her that the order was complete bed rest, and asked if she understood what that meant. Serena was shocked. The professor made himself clear. He warned that if she moved so much as a single step away from the bed, blood would spray from every inch of her body. Serena was stunned. He asked her just how many times she thought her heart had stopped while he was treating her. The professor explained that right now Serena's wounds were only held together and had only been closed up temporarily. He told her that the only reason she was not in pain was because the anesthesia magic was working. She was injured badly enough that pushing herself even a little could leave her bedridden for life, so she absolutely had to stay on strict bed rest. He also warned her not to use any unnecessary magic on herself or the effects would interfere and make things worse. He said he would leave her drinks nearby, but she had to drink them while staying in bed. He then added that there was one more thing. The professor told Serena that if she felt even the slightest pain or anything unusual, she should call for him immediately. He explained that the effects of the anesthesia magic were still unstable. He gave her a communication stone. He told her that her priority right now was not work but healing her injuries, and asked her to leave everything else to him. He told her not to overexert herself and to use the stone to call for him if she felt any pain. He then excused himself. Serena tried to call out to him, but he left. Serena apologized, saying she was truly sorry for all the trouble she had caused him. She thought that the professor had every right to be angry. After he had fought so hard to save her life, she had gone and tried to be so reckless. She asked herself if she would be able to walk again. The professor told her to rest easy. He told her that he would ensure every one of her injuries was fully healed. There would be no scars and no permanent damage. The professor told Serena that she did not need to worry about him, as it was his own decision to treat her. He said that of course the treatment and rehabilitation would take time, but he asked her to focus entirely on her recovery and regaining her strength. Serena was overjoyed to hear that all her wounds would heal completely. Serena thought that her family had been contacted, so she should focus on her recovery first so she could return home as quickly as possible. She imagined the reunion would be quite a commotion, her family all bursting into the room and her mother surely apologizing with frantic intensity. She could see it so clearly. She thought about what expression and what words she should use when her mother apologized to her. Serena noticed that her bandages had been changed and that the agonizing pain she usually felt when waking up was gone. She wondered if it was almost dawn or perhaps dusk. She then looked outside and was shocked. Serena recognized the sight outside the window. She said she knew this sight, she had loved it in her previous life and had yearned for it for so long. The house was submerged in the sea. She wondered why. She knew that Azure sea mages made their living diving and that the professor had only just returned from his mission at sea. But she could not understand why the house was underwater. She realized that she could not go back home. Serena asked why they were in the sea. The professor appeared and scolded her, reminding her that he told her not to get up. He said the anesthesia magic was about to wear off and that he would reapply it. Serena asked why the house was in the sea and whether he had contacted her, Flotos Dukedom. The professor told her that he had not contacted them. Serena was shocked and asked if that meant the Flotos Dukedom did not know she was alive. The professor explained that looking at the scene on Monster Isle alone, they likely thought she was dead. He said he had only driven the monsters away so there were no monster corpses left behind. Serena thought that could not be true, but then admitted that if her family had been told, the Flotos Dukedom would have come for her long ago. Serena wondered why she had never noticed until now. It was too late, they were already beneath the waves. She recalled that through the professor's magic as the magician of the Azure Sea, the island was slowly descending toward the ocean floor. Once it reached the bottom, they would stay there for a while gathering resources, and when that was done, the island would slowly rise back to the surface. She remembered that even back when the professor was her tutor, every round trip would take several months. He had once told her he would be diving again and would be back in a few months. Serena realized that for the next few months everyone would go on thinking she was dead. She would be trapped in the house beneath the sea, unable to return to the Sky Island, with no way to reach anyone. Her mother would go on believing she was the one who killed Serena. She asked herself if she really had to spend all that time like this. She thought it was just too cruel. Serena grabbed the professor's hand and begged him, asking him to please contact her family, even if it was just to let them know she was alive. The professor looked at her silently. The professor told Serena that he had no intention of contacting her, Flotos Dukedom. He added that for now he had no intention of sending her home, and he had no intention of letting her leave the house either. Serena was scared. She thought she could not tell what the professor was really thinking. He had always been expressionless before, but looking back, even that expressionless face spoke volumes. She wondered what a captive, injured person like her could even do and why he would go out of his way to say he would not let her go home. She made a promise to herself. The professor told Serena that he had no intention of causing her any harm and that he would see to it that her injuries were healed. Serena thought about how he would not let her go home yet said he would not harm her. She wondered if he was her enemy or her ally. All this time and even now he had been taking care of her so seriously. She could not bring herself to doubt him. She asked him if she could know why he would not contact her, Flotos Dukedom. The professor asked Serena if she was aware of the situation. He asked her why she thought that was. He explained that the house was already headed for the seabed, and until they gathered resources on the seabed and rose to the sky once more, there was absolutely nothing she could do. He told Serena that since she was unable to even move as she wished, she had nothing but time. He asked her to please think about it, why he was keeping her confined and why he refused to contact her, Flotos Dukedom. He told her to take her time and look back on the environment she had been living in. The professor left the room. He acknowledged that he was aware he did not have her trust, but told her that if she felt any pain or anything unusual, she should call for him right away. Serena lay in bed wondering what she was supposed to think about. Serena thought that she still had no idea what the professor really wanted. More than anything, she did not want to be a burden to him anymore. But to endure the pain and the nightmares all alone was impossible. She wondered what she should do and how she was supposed to go on. She clutched the communication stone. 10 days had passed since the island submerged. Serena noted that problems kept piling up, her injury, the teacher's riddles. Ford asked Serena if she was still going to call him sensei, pointing out that she was still calling the man who confined her by that title. Serena said she didn't particularly mind, but Ford said he would prefer she stopped. Serena then asked Ford to stop addressing her as Lady Serena, but Ford told her that was the only proper way to address a duke's daughter. She added that she was not a lady here and said that if Ford wouldn't change how he addressed her, then neither would she. Ford asked why she had to be so stubborn, calling her the stubborn one. Ford agreed and said he would call her Miss Serena. Serena accepted and said she would call him Ford as well, wondering to herself why she was stuck in such a pointless standoff. Serena thought how Ford obsessed over something as trivial as what they called each other, and believed there had to be a reason the teacher was keeping her there. She wondered why Sensei had locked her up. She considered the first possibility that the teacher held a grudge against the Duke's house or against her personally. She dismissed that, reasoning that the teacher wouldn't have saved her if she hated him. She knew that the teacher disliked people and that she would choose rejection over retaliation. She then imagined a second possibility, confinement out of affection. She apologized to him for imagining something so weird and dismissed that too, noting that the teacher didn't treat her like a woman or even a human. He felt he was more like a medical dummy to her, a near-death model. She considered a third possibility, that the teacher had isolated her as research material after the monster attack. She admitted it was the most logical explanation but felt it was wrong. The teacher was the only medical mage among the Azure Sea researchers, and she had the world's most advanced knowledge and techniques. Her parents would have gladly cooperated with her, and Serena had even offered to help, so there was no reason to isolate him. She supposed that covered her side of things. Serena admitted that she didn't have a reason either, and that she was the one who wanted to go home. Ford then said "excuse me," and suddenly began examining Serena's face closely. He removed her bandages and told her there didn't appear to be anything wrong. Ford asked Serena if she could see and if there was any discomfort. Serena said she was fine and could see clearly. Serena looked surprised. Ford held up a mirror and told her the wounds on her face were fully healed and that there were no scars left either. Serena was shocked, saying there were no scars and that her skin was perfectly smooth even though the gashes had been so deep. Ford told her the wounds on her arm were closing up too, and suggested they switch to magic that erased the marks. He said it would heal beautifully, just like her face. Serena said she had thought scars from deep wounds would always stay with her. Serena recalled that every time she saw those scars she thought she would have to live with that terror forever. Even so, she had told herself that just being alive was fortunate enough. She said there was no helping it, so she had given up. With tears in her eyes, she thanked Ford deeply. Ford told her she would heal completely and that even her legs that wouldn't move now would recover. Serena responded with a tearful yes. Serena believed that someone who had been so kind to her would never lock her in with ill intent. Ford left the room, saying he would go get more medicine. Serena thought to herself that she truly hadn't had a single complaint. She wasn't bothered about the broken engagement with His Highness, and life at the villa wasn't bad either. She then wondered if the reason for her confinement was for her own sake. If she had to say anything, she supposed she wanted to go into the ocean. Ford reacted with shock at the mention of the ocean. Serena then remembered that the place they were in was the sea. She looked out from the villa and saw the underwater world outside with fish swimming around. She spotted dolphins through the windows and exclaimed how adorable they were, greeting them happily. Ford returned to the room carrying supplies and apologized for keeping Serena waiting. He found Serena at the window, shouting that she was so happy and it was so much fun. She yelled out that she wanted to swim. Ford called out to her with a confused look. Ford warned Serena that she couldn't return home in her physical body through the sea. Serena eagerly agreed and then asked when she would be able to swim. Ford looked caught off guard. Serena asked Ford when she would be able to swim. Ford looked confused. Serena told him she wanted to swim in the sea. Ford stared at her in silence. He then told her to let him examine her legs. He said they had healed somewhat, but the feeling hadn't returned yet. Serena said she couldn't even feel Ford touching her legs, let alone any pain. She asked if they would really get better. Ford told her the wound would heal, and once it did, she would be able to swim. Serena was excited and asked how much time it would take. Ford said it would take time, and at the very least not during this dive. He explained the plan. They would treat her wounds before the next ascent. Then by the time they rose to the surface, she would start rehabilitation. And once the island's diving magic recovered, they would return to the sea. By the time they reached the seabed, it would take over half a year. Serena acknowledged that it would take quite a while. Ford asked her if she really wanted to swim that badly, looking completely exasperated. Serena said yes. Ford noted that most people feared the sea as a forbidden zone, just like Monster Island, yet Serena had always loved it. Serena admitted she was aware she was strange. She then told Ford that she never knew he was someone who smiled this much, adding that he talked a lot too. Serena gazed out the window at the sea. Ford stayed silent for a moment, then activated a magic circle. The window glass vanished, and Serena was shocked to see it disappear. The seawater was now exposed right at the window opening. Ford told her she could touch the surface if she liked, but asked her not to put her hand through. Serena reached out and touched the water. She felt the ocean on her hand and thought about how she had given up on it in this world. The dolphins swam close and she was overwhelmed. Ford was suddenly startled as Serena fell through the window into the sea. Serena found herself in the water with the dolphins. She said that as she thought she loved the sea, she called it a world of blue and said it was more than she could bear, more than anything. She thanked Ford with tears in her eyes and told him to keep the windows open at all times. She then said they could play lots together from now on, calling Ford Big Sister. Ford paused and Serena caught herself. Serena called out to Ford, confused. Ford insisted that it wasn't him and that it wasn't right. A dolphin greeted Serena, saying hello and that they could finally talk. Serena was stunned, asking if the sea creatures could really talk. She thought the professor would never talk like that, and then realized it was a dolphin speaking. The dolphin explained that it was Ford's magic that allowed them to communicate. Another dolphin told her it wasn't just her. The dolphin had been healed just like she was, and it was completely better now. Serena asked if Ford had used magic on the sea creatures when they were hurt. The dolphin confirmed it. Many sea creatures gathered around the villa, all calling out to the teacher. They said things like telling the teacher they were all better now, pointing out that there was someone who wasn't the teacher, greeting Serena and asking if she was hurt too because the teacher could fix her right up. Serena realized that Ford had been treating all these sea creatures she loved so much and helping them communicate. Serena thought that someday when her injuries had healed and she could swim again, she wanted to swim in the ocean with these little ones. Ford told her it was not that simple, explaining that the wound on her leg was the deepest of all and the pain would be considerable. Serena declared she would work hard so she could swim. She said that if it meant she could swim with the little ones, she would be fine. Ford was caught off guard. Serena cried out in pain from her leg. Ford had been right, the pain in her leg was not something she could endure through sheer willpower. Serena recalled that from memories of her past life she knew she was the villainess in a game. She had used every means available to correct the unfortunate game scenario of exile from the country. But despite her efforts, the Crown Prince still annulled their engagement. And then she was attacked by a monster. Serena screamed that it hurt, saying there were fangs in her leg. Ford called out her name. Serena cried that she was going to die. Ford told her she was fine and that she was alive, and that the anesthetic would take effect soon. Serena kept screaming for help, begging for someone to save her. Serena sat awake in her room. She said she hadn't slept since that day and that she didn't want to sleep, because every time she slept she dreamed of the monster devouring her leg. She thought that the little sea creatures were her only comfort now. She was suddenly startled. Ford entered the room and called out to Serena, asking if she hadn't been sleeping lately. He brought supplies with him and began flipping through books, pulling them from the shelves. Ford sat down on the bed beside Serena with a book in his hands. Serena realized he intended to watch her until she fell asleep, but she didn't want to see that dream again. Serena asked Ford what the reason for confining her was, telling him she had thought about it but couldn't understand why. Ford reminded her that he had told her before to reflect on her circumstances. Serena said she did reflect, but she had no complaints. She said there was no better environment than this. Ford said that was impossible because Serena recalled how she had crushed everything, her villainous traits, her family grievances, the seeds of discord, all of it. There was no longer any worry of being exiled. She asked Ford why he opened the window for her. He told her it was because she was looking at the fish with those childlike sparkling eyes. Serena thought that was a foolish question too. Ford told Serena he simply wished to honor her wishes as much as possible. He said that even in this life that went against her will, he wanted to reduce her discomfort if only a little. Serena insisted she had no inconvenience or discomfort and that she was nothing but grateful. Ford said he was glad to hear it. Serena wondered if confining her wasn't actually the teacher's true intention. She realized she had no idea she was making him worry so much. She recalled Ford's earlier words about reflecting on her current situation and asked what the purpose was then. Ford told her that was enough talking. He said the fish told him that she had been awake the whole time. He added that she hadn't slept in days and her mind couldn't possibly function. Serena realized the fish had told Ford everything and that he knew all along. Ford confirmed it. He told her he would stay there tonight so he could recast the spell immediately if needed, and asked her to please rest easy. Serena shouted no, recognizing that he was about to use sleep magic on her. Ford began casting sleep magic. Serena resisted. Ford asked if it wasn't pain or anxiety keeping her awake. Serena admitted that she had dreams where monsters devoured her legs over and over. Serena said she knew she had been saved and that her wounds were healing, but in the dream she was all alone in that forest, completely helpless. She said she was so hopeless and pathetic. Ford took her hand and told her that if he did this, she would know she wasn't alone. Serena called out to him in surprise. Ford told her he was right there, always, and that he would stay until she woke up. Serena felt the warmth of Sensei's hand, the knobby texture, and the comforting weight. She could feel that she wasn't alone, but she found it embarrassing and told him she was fine and would sleep properly. Ford asked her to rely on him. Serena insisted she was already relying on him more than enough: treatment, food, clothing, shelter, everything. Ford said that was his duty as her doctor and captor, and that she had every right to be angry with him. He asked why she didn't complain and just searched for reasons for what she was told to do. Serena started to answer. Ford told her he wanted her to rely on him, to be selfish, to not hold back. He told her to lean on him and to please trouble him with her worries. Serena thought this was a mess. She pointed out that Ford had said before that he wasn't good with people. Ford confirmed that was correct. Dealing with others was exhausting. However, he said there were exceptions to everything, and for him that exception was simply Serena. He told her that if she understood, to please just take him at his word and sleep. Serena stared at him in silence. Ford cast the sleep magic on her. He told her it was all right, and that just as he saved her in reality, he would save her in her dreams too. He said he wouldn't let her go back to a house like that. In her dream, the monster attacked Serena again. She cried out that it hurt and that she was about to be devoured. She begged for help, calling out for someone to save her. Serena heard a voice calling her name, Lady Serena. She recognized the voice, the warmth, and the touch. Ford appeared in the dream, holding Serena. He told her it was okay, and that he would save her. He said he would definitely save her no matter what. Serena remembered it. Serena woke up with Ford sitting beside her. He asked if she was awake. Serena looked at his hand and then at her own. She asked Ford if he held her hand that day on Monster Island. Ford confirmed it, saying he grabbed her hand and pulled her close. Ford recalled the moment on Monster Island when he held the badly wounded Serena while casting magic. He called out to her, telling her to stay with him. He held her in his arms and told her she would be all right, swearing he would save her. Serena said she remembered now, his hand gripping hers so tightly, his voice calling her name, her teacher's voice encouraging her and promising to save her. She thanked him for saving her. Ford replied that he had heard that many times already. Serena looked surprised and the room began to shake. Ford told Serena she had been asleep for 15 hours and that she must be hungry, offering to prepare a meal. Serena's stomach growled. She was shocked to learn Ford had held her hand for 15 hours and she apologized, saying she was so embarrassed. Ford looked confused and asked what was wrong. A few days passed. Serena noted that since that day her nightmares had stopped completely. She wondered if it was because her memories of Monster Island had returned. Now that she could sleep, her body's recovery was going smoothly too. She felt that right now everything around her was so quiet. Serena recalled that when she was at the Duke's estate there were constant loud noises, headaches, and dizziness. She thought it was not silent now, but so clear that she could pick out even the tiny sounds from far away. Serena remembered how she was supposed to be chronically unwell at the estate, and yet everyone constantly demanded her attention, her sister calling for her, people asking if she had a moment. She was too caught up in work to spare any attention for herself. She realized that long-term treatment would have been impossible there. She called out to Ford and told him she had 3 points. Ford responded with a questioning look. Serena asked if the reason he had her under house arrest was because she couldn't properly recover at the Duke's estate. Ford gave her a score of 3 out of 100. He said that if that were the case, he could have contacted her family and had her recuperate elsewhere, though he acknowledged those 3 points were valid. Serena admitted she hadn't thought it through and was still far from the answer. She said she needed to find it quickly because she wanted to at least contact her family. She wanted to free them from the search and the guilt. Serena looked at the sea creatures and her family felt so distant now. She thought the allure of the ocean had come between them. She recognized this was nothing but a betrayal of her family, and yet she had made her decision. She apologized to the sea creatures, and Ford looked at her silently. Serena admitted she had stopped prioritizing her family. She told Ford it was an apology to them. She said there was no way to contact them until the island surfaced anyway. Ford said it was unforgivable, but Serena continued. She said that more than contacting her family, the ocean right before her eyes was what she wanted. She wanted to engage with the ocean she had always longed for. Serena told Ford she wanted to know more about the ocean. Ford told her his reports and books on the ocean were over there. Serena was confused. Ford said he had no use for them anymore, but they might have the answers she was looking for. He used teleportation magic to send the books to her. Serena asked if she could really look at them, and Ford said yes, provided she stayed in bed and didn't overdo it. Serena was amazed by all the books she had never seen before. She said she was most curious about the report and wondered what was in it. Ford told her that if anything was unclear, he would explain it to her. Serena started to object, but Ford told her he had already said it before. He was happy when she relied on him. A dolphin offered to tell Serena about the ocean too. Serena was delighted. The dolphin told her that if she dove a little deeper, there was a coral forest. Serena was excited. The dolphin said it was a vast, beautiful forest once, but someone took all the coral and now it was a barren mountain. Serena was confused. The dolphin explained that the teacher used restorative magic on it, and it was completely back to normal, thanking the teacher. Serena had never even considered it before in this world. Only Azure sea mages were supposed to be able to enter the ocean, and yet those select few were the ones destroying the sea. She asked herself what that was. The sea creatures gave their testimonies. A fish said there were a lot of people who took all the coral and seaweed, root and all. A hermit crab confirmed that the teacher would never take the shells that were their homes. Serena thought that Ford was certainly that kind of person, and noted how well liked he was. The sea creatures expressed their love for the teacher. Serena then murmured that the other Azure sea mages too were equally noble souls who loved the sea, but they were not like Ford. She clenched her fist. Ford called out to her. Serena asked if the mages were harvesting the sea's resources completely. Ford confirmed it was true. She pointed out that the nation should be restricting harvest amounts. Ford explained that there certainly were restrictions, but the more you harvested, the better your evaluation and rewards. Since there were so few people who could dive, there were no penalties either. Those who had broken the restrictions were still regularly going into the sea. Serena asked Ford if he didn't harvest extra resources. Ford asked if she thought he would work himself ragged worrying about evaluations. The sea creatures said that the only one who cared about them was the teacher, and that everyone else got scared and ran away. Serena was shocked. She realized that the gentle, kind sea she had encountered in this world was what Ford had been protecting all along. She thought that he might be the only one in this world who truly revered the sea and that he was such a wonderful person. Serena told Ford he was wonderful and that she loved Sensei so much. Ford looked confused and thanked her, asking what the sudden praise was about. Serena thought that she wanted to dive into the sea too, for the sake of the ocean, like Ford, like she was in her past life. But right now she was far too powerless, and all she could do was gain knowledge from her bed. She noted that Ford's reports were more detailed than the books, but there was hardly any information on ocean environments or ecosystems. Ford came in and asked if she was still reading, and Serena said she hadn't realized how late it was. Serena asked the dolphins if all oceans were similar environments. They told her no, that there were much colder places and all kinds of others, and that the creatures varied too. Serena said she wanted to know more about them and asked the dolphins to tell her. The dolphins told her to just ask them, and that what was written in the books was what they could tell her too. Ford said he saw. Serena's question had been answered in an instant. She thought that even though she could learn so quickly from the sea creatures, no one had ever done it before. She noted that Ford's specialty was healing magic and not the ocean, and that the report was just a side project to his research. She wished she could go into the ocean herself. Serena was startled when she noticed her bandaged feet could move slightly. Ford entered the room with a chair. Serena wondered what it was. Ford told her she seemed to be doing fine and said, "Pardon me." He picked her up in his arms. Serena was embarrassed and asked if the chair was heavy. Ford told her to touch a stone on it. He activated a magic circle and the chair began to float. Serena was amazed that it was a chair that floated with magic. Ford told Serena to try imagining herself heading toward the door. She directed the chair toward the door and it moved. Ford confirmed there was no problem. He told her that until she could walk again she should use that chair, and that he would show her around while she practiced. Ford showed Serena the kitchen, the storage room, and the drawing room. He told her she was free to use the house as she pleased, but warned her that whatever she did she must not go outside. He also told her to be careful. Serena was glad she could move around but wondered if it was really okay to have this much freedom while under house arrest. Ford showed her the second floor, which had his study and bedroom as well as a locked room for classified documents. He said that was all the rooms. He told her that he would be going in and out through the entrance up ahead, and that he would return for his breaks during examination times, so she should stay in her room then. He also told her that now that the island had reached the seabed, he would be going out to sea several times a day starting today. Serena looked out and saw the entrance area, which had a glass ceiling showing the ocean above and a large door leading to the sea. Ford stood near a magic circle by the entrance. Serena thought the ocean was so beautiful and that she felt like she could be pulled right in. She now understood why Ford was so insistent about her not going outside. Ford told her he was heading out to collect samples and to make herself comfortable. He told her to call for him immediately if she felt any changes in her condition. Ford walked out into the ocean carrying cases with his feet on the ocean floor. Serena watched from inside as he dove in. She wondered what it felt like to move around on the ocean floor without a tank, not even concerned about the water pressure. She wanted to experience it herself too. She wondered what Ford brought back. The sea creatures told her he mostly collected magic stones and that he came back with his bag full of them. They explained that once the storage over there was full, they went up to the sky. They also mentioned that other people filled up entire islands with magic stones. Serena asked the creatures if they knew whether Ford's resources were running low. The fish seemed uncertain. The sea creatures told Serena it was the first time they had talked to someone this much. They said the professor wasn't much of a talker, and that they should be the ones thanking her because it was so fun chatting with her. Serena laughed and agreed that it was fun. Serena noticed an area nearby and the sea creatures told her it was a drift zone. She observed that the current was quite complex there. She remembered finding rare creatures in places like that in her past life. She said that for some reason she was always good at spotting them and her diving buddies were always amazed. She thought the rocks over there looked perfect. She then noticed something in the distance and wondered what it was. Something glinted near the jagged rocks underwater. Serena noticed it and asked what it was. The dolphin recognized what she was looking at. She asked what was wrong, and the dolphin pointed out that something was glinting over by the rocks. She asked where the object was now. The dolphin said the current was flowing to the right, so it was probably near the jagged rocks. The dolphin swam off to find it. She called out to Serena, who she called her older sister. The dolphin leaped out of the water and told Serena to make sure she caught it. Confused, Serena asked what she was supposed to catch and said she couldn't see a thing. Water splashed everywhere. Serena ended up soaking wet and the dolphin apologized. Serena told her it was all right and said she would leave the tidying up to her. She looked at what the dolphin had brought and wondered if it was a stone. She held it up and remarked that it was beautiful, like the ocean itself. She noted it was no wonder it was hard to spot underwater. The dolphin said nobody would take it since they didn't use magic stones like that, and they didn't think humans would use it either. Serena was surprised to learn it was a magic stone. Serena asked if there were a lot of them. The dolphins said there were tons, and that they kept forming where currents collided, but they shattered the moment they hit something. That was why the dolphins never got hurt by them. They mentioned that Sensei had just been hit by about 3 and hadn't even noticed. Serena observed that if you scooped them up deliberately, they solidified into a solid form. She sensed incredibly strong magic from the stone. She thought that if no one had collected it before, it could be a new species. If it was a useful magic stone and she could successfully collect it, it could help with environmental protection. She asked the dolphins if they could tell her more about the stone and the resources. The dolphin happily agreed, saying it was having fun talking with her and she could ask anything. The dolphins mentioned that a manta would know more about the stone, but mantas couldn't talk. Someone suggested having Sensei heal an injured manta and cast a conversation spell on it while he was at it. Serena noted that Ford was very busy though. She said she could use a little healing magic herself, and wished she could learn conversation magic too. She then remembered there was a magic book about the sea and found it on the bookshelf. She questioned what use learning magic of the sea was when she couldn't even dive without being a mage of the Azure Sea. She was a duke's daughter, and even if she didn't marry into the royal family, she would eventually marry into another house or take a husband and succeed the house. Serena had to serve her country and her house. Ford had told her she would be able to swim by the next dive, but she was certain she wouldn't be able to join it. And yet she still wished for it. Serena didn't want to go back. She wanted to stay involved with the sea. If only she could work with the sea. A fish asked if she was all right and offered to fetch the doctor. She said she was fine and had just been lost in thought. She told herself that worrying about the distant future wouldn't help, and that she had to do what she could for the children here and now. She opened the magic book and said she would do her best. She found the magic far too difficult, but kept encouraging herself that she could do it. And so began her life on the ocean floor. While greeting and seeing off Ford as he repeatedly returned home, she stubbornly wrestled with the magic. Ford noticed she was learning magic awfully fast and told her she would be able to use it in no time. Ford found it strange that even with his guidance, mastering the magic should have taken several months, and yet she was progressing quickly. She admitted it wasn't a bad thing but wondered what it meant. She was still only partway through the book with many pages left. Ford returned home again, and the younger sister noted that teacher was back and wrapped up the day's collection. She looked at Ford curiously. Ford stared at her intently. She called his name and he suddenly cast magic around them both. She was shocked to see the ocean appearing around them. Ford created a large bubble and took her outside. He explained that in her current condition she couldn't use diving magic, but she could travel inside a large bubble. Ford invited her to take a little walk through the garden. She happily agreed. Serena and Ford walked together inside the bubble through the underwater garden. She felt guilty about dragging Ford around when he worked himself to the bone. She apologized, saying he must be exhausted, and asked if they should head back. Ford told her that she was so hard on herself, yet she spoiled others endlessly. She asked if she really did that. Ford confirmed that yes, she did. He started to say that was exactly why but then caught himself, quickly said it was nothing and changed the subject. She was caught off guard, wondering what he had just said. Ford leaned close to her and asked when she was going to let herself lean on him. She wondered to herself what Ford meant by leaning on him. She asked if it wouldn't be too much trouble and whether it would be all right to walk like this every day. She wondered if it was really enough. Ford said of course he would be delighted, and that it was a nice break for him as well. He added that if he was being honest, he would be happier if she could just relax and not worry so much. She responded that even if he said that, it was just her nature and there was nothing she could do about it. Ford agreed and then asked her to put both arms in the water for a moment. Ford confirmed that her arm was fully healed and that she should be able to withstand the diving magic now. He asked if a few seconds would be enough and suggested they give it a try. She excitedly agreed, saying that was plenty. Ford cast the spell and told her to go ahead. She thanked him. She stepped outside the bubble and recalled what the dolphins had told her. She needed to focus her intent on gathering the magic stones. The two of them walked together through an area full of sea creatures and magic stones scattered everywhere. She spotted a magic stone being carried by the current and watched it closely. She called out that it was time and reached out to grab it. She successfully caught the stone in her hands. Ford watched her. She showed Ford the stone and asked if he was familiar with them. Ford said he had never seen one but sensed quite powerful magic from it. She explained that she had been told they were everywhere yet hard to find and very fragile, but that they apparently solidified if you scooped them up with intent. Ford found that interesting and suggested that perhaps they hardened under the influence of the gatherer's magic. He asked how she had found it. She said it did seem to flash. She explained that earlier that morning she had been tracking light reflections in the water. She pointed out another one, but it hit the rocks and shattered. She admitted she couldn't tell them apart from the bubbles and debris, and that she didn't always see them either. She was only reading their position from the current. Ford noted that this was her first time at sea. She remarked that even the dolphin, who had spent its whole life in the water, couldn't see them. She added quietly that it was her first time at sea in this life, at least. She admitted that maybe her knowledge and experience from her past life was proving useful. She confessed that she actually wanted to work with the ocean. Given her position, she had to give up on that, but she called it a lie, saying she still couldn't let it go and couldn't help but wish she could use this ability. Ford said that if only she didn't have to inherit the family name and if only she could use diving magic. Ford then asked if she would work at sea. She was stunned and said she had never thought about it. But if that was the case, she declared that she would. She wanted the same research position as Ford, but she wanted to study the ocean, not medicine. She told Ford she wanted to research the stone and compile a report, and asked if he would read it when it was finished. Ford agreed, of course. Serena presented her completed report to Ford. He remarked that it was quite a lot. She told him she had learned conversation magic, so she had heard about the stones from various sea creatures. Ford was shocked, asking if she meant translation magic, and in just a few days, he acknowledged it was quite advanced magic but said she had learned it well. She explained that she had just focused and was able to do it, and that she was surprised herself. Ford said he would read it now and wished her good night. She wished him good night as well. Ford went to his study and sat at his desk to read her report. He examined the magic stone she had collected. He murmured that this was something significant. At the royal castle in the office of the Minister of Naval Affairs, someone reported that Lord Ford was on the line. A man with light-colored hair told them to let it ring and that Count Fausta was on the line. He added that Lord Rajalel was calling, and to tell him he would contact him tomorrow. Someone asked the man what had happened. He asked what it was, clearly troubled by something. At the royal castle, Maritime Minister Aldi complained that the Azarine Order had far too many duties, and even though they were all elite, there were only a few of them. Pirates were a serious issue, but they couldn't neglect medical care either. He had turned down most requests citing the medical workload, but now Sir Ford, the research specialist, had become the target. Since Ford was exempt from medical duties, requests were going to flood his office. Aldi remarked that for someone who hated people to seek out the protection of others, he still couldn't believe it. He noted that knowing Ford he wouldn't accept, especially now that he was protecting a duke's daughter. Aldi recalled that when he first met Ford 15 years ago there was no one around him and he rejected everyone. In the past, a young Aldi arrived at a building and noted that it was the home of Aomi's child. He introduced himself as Aldi, sent by the castle to meet with Ford Lusher. There was no sign of anyone inside. Aldi asked where Sir Ford was, and Ford replied that he was right there. Aldi asked if the others were absent. Ford simply said no and fell silent. Aldi got straight to the point and asked when Ford wished to take up his post as the Azure Sea Mage. He noted it was abnormal enough that Ford's family didn't see him off, but Ford himself was the same way. He warned Ford that once he was in office he would be buried in work and unable to see his family. He told Ford that if he had any regrets he should take care of them now and that he had time to think it over. Ford answered immediately, saying he wanted to start now. Aldi asked if Ford truly had no regrets. Ford confirmed. Aldi said he would make the arrangements, but Ford would need to acquire specialized knowledge in magic beforehand, and to be prepared for it to take several years. Ford agreed. 1 month later, Ford demonstrated a massive and complex magic circle. Aldi was stunned, asking if Ford had really mastered all the material. Ford confirmed he had. Aldi was amazed that medical knowledge along with advanced magic had been mastered so quickly, including the application of buoyancy and propulsion control to underwater magic. He thought Ford had extraordinary talent. Aldi reflected that the problem was Ford's unapproachable personality, which he attributed to either the price of talent or perhaps the environment Ford grew up in. He found it remarkable that Ford of all people would say he wanted to protect a woman. He believed Lady Serena must have done something to move him since she was a wise and kind-hearted young lady. He wondered why she had been driven to such extremes and lamented that it was a difficult family precisely because there was love. If they had hated one another, they could have just separated them. Another call came in and Aldi's assistant reported it was from Sir Ford. Aldi asked what was wrong and whether something had happened to Lady Serena. Ford told him it was a separate matter and that Lady Serena had discovered a new type of magic stone. Aldi was shocked and asked what kind of stone and about its magic power. Ford offered to send the stone in the report if Aldi promised not to misuse it. Aldi eagerly told him to send it and promised to make it worth his while. Aldi received the stone in her report. He recognized it as an incredible discovery. He noted that it wasn't just the stone but Lady Serena's talent that impressed him. He told his assistant to read it for himself. The report didn't just cover the stone, it raised specific issues about the marine environment. Not only had she discovered a stone that even Sir Ford couldn't identify, but she had sent them an astonishing report. He added that it seemed she was hoping to work at sea. His assistant remarked that she had the kind of talent one would give their right arm to have. With Ford's resource extraction complete, the island would finally surface tomorrow. Serena thought about how whether she liked it or not, the day drew closer, the reunion with her family and her daily life as a duke's daughter. Ford told her that today was the last day, and that they could go for another walk next time she came. She was sure she would never come here again. She thought of it as a promise that wouldn't be kept. Ford called her name and asked her to accept something. He gave her a seashell. She thanked him. She wondered why he was giving her such a sweet smile. Ford told her it was just something he found and asked her to keep it as a memento, since he was the one keeping her in confinement after all. She thought that wasn't what he meant. Serena reflected that the more precious these moments felt, and the deeper her love for Ford grew, the harder it became to let go. But if she had to let go eventually, She would make sure not to forget the happiness and love of this moment, and sear every bit of it into her memory to carry her through the rest of her life. She asked Ford if they could walk a little longer. Ford agreed, of course. Serena resolved that she would face the question Ford had given her. No more running away. Aldi asked Ford if the information in Serena's report was reliable. Ford confirmed he saw no factual errors in it himself. He said he would have a mage of the Azure Sea who was entering the ocean soon verify it, and asked Aldi to please choose the person carefully. Ford assured him not to worry, saying he would ask someone he trusted. Ford acknowledged that doubt was understandable, since a young lady with no abilities as a mage of the Azure Sea had found a new magic stone so easily. Ford thought to himself that Serena was such an enigma. She still hadn't found her answer, yet she had demonstrated an ability to locate magic stones and mastered advanced translation magic. Removing her from the Duke's estate was starting to show results. And then there was the fact that she wanted to study the ocean. Ford noted that her life had been nothing but fulfilling missions given to her, but he was able to draw out her own desires. That was a major step forward. He wrote a memo thinking it should help her fulfill those desires too. Ford reflected that to think he who disliked people would pour his soul into someone else to this extent. He admitted he was not good with people. It wasn't that he hated them, just talking to someone wore him down. It was exhausting, plain and simple. The cause was simple bad luck. He was born into an unwanted family with the Azure Sea ability, and that was all it was. As a child, someone called him an Azure Sea mage and said he would just get in the way of their business. His family considered it a great honor, but his father called it nonsense and said not to waste effort on a child who would leave the family eventually. His mother quietly agreed. When Ford was little, he desperately tried to get his family's attention. He offered to carry his father's bag and asked his mother if there was anything he could help with. His father yelled at him to shut up and told him he was in the way, then shoved him aside. Young Ford was left standing alone. His mother walked away without looking back. The moment Ford gained status, everyone's attitude changed. He grew up and learned to protect himself by keeping people at arm's length. There were those who flattered him and those who built up expectations only to feel let down. Every interaction wore down his nerves. He produced results, was exempted from medical duties, and escaped to the lonely ocean floor. He wished he could just stay there and sink to the bottom of the sea. Aldi told Ford he had already compromised on the matter and couldn't allow Ford to refuse. He was asking Ford to tutor the Count's and Duke's families, to do the work and uphold the royal family's honor. Ford said that as for being turned down, it was their right, but Aldi said that was their prerogative. The Count's house had already declined. Aldi asked Ford what he had done. Ford said he was just tutoring them. The Duke's house then requested a private tutor for the older sister, and the younger sister's request was cancelled. Ford expected he would be turned down by those sisters too. He thought the students were just giving up on their own since they couldn't even remember the material. There was no problem at all. Ford was not turned down. Even though he was disappointed by this unexpected turn of events, Serena called him Professor Ford and eagerly asked what kind of creatures lived in the sea. She was a girl whose eyes sparkled as she begged for stories of the sea, without minding his unsociable attitude. And yet she didn't trample into his heart uninvited. She asked him if they were almost done and said she would do her best. Ford noticed that the gloomy tutoring sessions were becoming something comfortable. She wished him safe travels before a dive, telling him to please come back safely, and said she would be looking forward to his next lesson. She gave him a deep blue stone as a gift. Ford recalled that she wished from her heart for their reunion and gave him the stone. He was completely won over by that smile. That dive was a disaster. The dolphins noticed the stone Ford was wearing and said it was lovely and that it suited him perfectly. They asked if he picked it out himself. Ford said no, it was a gift. The dolphins remarked that whoever chose it must know him very well and that they must really like him. They said they were jealous and that the person liked him as much as they did. Ford was caught off guard. Ford noticed the Duke estate's problems immediately. During tutoring sessions, Serena was called away for trivial matters. Someone would shout for her and she would excuse herself, apologizing to the professor and saying she had been summoned. She responded as if it were only natural. Ford thought that would resolve itself once she became queen consort and left, or so he thought. People frantically called out Lady Serena's name. Aldi was shocked and asked if she was safe. Ford reported that Serena was badly injured, but he would heal her completely. However, that was only if she remained in his household. He couldn't return her to the Duke's estate unless the family's problems were resolved. Aldi agreed and told Ford to leave the family matters to him, counting on Ford to look after her. And so Ford confined her to the sea, letting her focus on treatment, silently watching over her as she sought her own answer. He did this because the family's problems could only be resolved if she realized the truth herself. Ford stood in his study reading her report. He walked to the window and looked out. All he wished for endlessly was her happiness, a future she chose for herself. No matter where she was, even if beside another man, as long as her radiant eyes never lost their light, that was enough. The island left the ocean floor and Serena's rehabilitation began. Ford helped Serena walk, telling her to slowly take one step forward and that he had her so she shouldn't worry. Serena wondered to herself how she had been walking all this time as her steps were shaky and unsteady. Ford told her to stop for the day as any further would only make her injury worse. He added that he needed to get back to work as well. Serena agreed. Underwater, Serena told the sea creatures that it would still be a while before she could walk. They reassured her that she had been hurt pretty badly and should take her time healing. They pointed out that just a few days ago she could barely stand, and yet she had already managed to walk a little. One of them suggested that once she was better they should go swimming together. Serena thanked them. Serena told herself that was right, she didn't have time to mope around. There was plenty to do besides rehabilitation. She wanted to learn as much magic as she could too. However, the textbook was full of difficult spells. The sea creatures cheered her on as she studied. She found 2 spells she thought she could manage. The first was projection magic, which captured light and sound from afar and projected them into a magic circle. Serena tried it and could see herself in the projection, but with her mana, the window was about as far as she could reach. Seeing past the hill was out of the question. The second was key magic, which let her open and close locks without a key. She found a locked door and opened it with the spell. She thought it might work for an escape, but they never locked the door to her confinement room anyway. She found it so simple it was almost useless. Serena decided to take a break and have some tea, bringing some for Ford as well. She went upstairs and approached his room, but before she could knock she heard Ford speaking harshly to someone. Ford told whoever was inside that he refused. The other person asked if there was something wrong with what they were requesting. Ford repeated that he said he was refusing. The person pressed him, saying they weren't just asking, magic stone consumption was up and prices were soaring. Ford went silent for a moment, then said enough already. Ford stated that it was a job for someone else and that it was not something he should be doing. Serena watched from outside, stunned. Ford eventually told Serena to do as she wished. She had never seen him so furious. She entered and told him she had brought tea, thinking he might need a break. Ford thanked her and asked if she would care to join him. Serena said she would be delighted. Ford remarked that it reminded him of when he was her tutor. He asked Serena if she would like to study together again, like they used to. Serena repeated the word study in surprise. Ford said yes and that there was something he wanted to give her a guide on how to use underwater magic. Serena was shocked. Serena asked if this wasn't something only the Azure Sea Mage could read. Ford explained that the older documents had been written using Azure Sea magical theory, but he had converted those notes into standard magical theory so that she could understand them as well. He also told her that the ancient text contained a passage that said everyone once swam the seas. Serena asked if that meant even those who weren't mages of the Azure Sea could dive. Ford said in theory yes. No one had attempted it before, but he asked if she would like to try. Serena asked if he would teach her, and Ford said he would if that was what she wanted. Serena exclaimed that she wanted to learn and wanted to try. Ford left the room. Serena stood holding the book, realizing she could actually learn diving magic. Serena thought it felt like a dream. She couldn't believe she got to learn diving magic and that Ford had made these notes just for her. It wasn't a memo but an entire book. She vowed not to let Ford's help go to waste and to give it her all. But she quickly struggled with the material. She didn't even know what the words meant and the dictionary was no help. Ford came in and noticed she was already struggling. Serena admitted she had stumbled at the very first word. Ford said it was a complex spell after all and explained the basic concept. First you coat your body in a membrane of air, and magic keeps the air in that membrane fresh. Ford continued that the spell also regulated water pressure while controlling buoyancy and propulsion as you moved. Serena was amazed that all of that happened at once. Ford confirmed that it naturally consumed a tremendous amount of magic. To dive for a long time, a mage's total capacity was important, but the key was how efficiently you could control such complex magic. He said that was where the skill gap between Azure Sea mages truly showed. Serena found it staggering. Ford asked if she was giving up. Serena shouted that she was not and begged him to please teach her. Ford said they would start with the theory and creating a membrane on her fingertips. That night, Serena lay in bed thinking the day had certainly been eventful. Yet Ford's words from when he flew into such a rage would not leave her mind. She recalled him saying it was something someone else should do, not something he should be doing. She wondered if he had been trying to tell her something important. She suddenly had a realization those words matched Serena's dialogue from the game, where she had said they were the selfish ones and that they should do it themselves, calling them a nuisance. Serena noted that the biggest difference from the sea in her past life was how bright it was. No matter how deep you dived, light from above sparkled on the surface. By day, strong sunlight made the whole ocean glow blue, and at night, moonlight softly lit the indigo dark. She loved both kinds of light and was truly glad she could dive in this world's sea. Serena explained that since they lived in the water, they used seawater for everything, eating, discharging waste, and cleaning their bodies. They used their hands or tools to bring food to their mouths where there was no water, and there were special rooms for waste and washing. When asked what she did since she couldn't move, Serena said that now that she could sit up, she took care of it herself with magic. There were spells to handle needs like toileting, bathing, and changing clothes. Serena reflected that when she first began studying under Ford, she never imagined she would develop romantic feelings for him. She had even analyzed him with the powers of observation she had cultivated through her queen education. He held no peerage and was brusque, yet he was a man of exceptional magical talent and confidence to match. as her heart raced at his tales of the sea she had always admired, as she came to respect his abilities as a mage and his values, and as she found his awkward yet sincere and earnest nature endearing. She had fallen into a childish infatuation. Her heart raced just thinking about him. Each time she discovered a new side of him beneath the waves, each time he smiled at her or showed her kindness, her feelings spread wider and deeper within her heart, like the gentle blue sea itself. Serena wondered what she was supposed to do with these feelings.